Hey guys, this is Kendall Terry, and this is looking at plant nutrition and soils, which under the new AP Biology standards is really a small section of this chapter. A lot of the other stuff mentioned in this chapter is really just beyond the scope and sequence of this particular course. The first question, though, since we've talked about transport and plants and different things like that, is where do plants primarily get the nutrients they need? They get the nutrients they need primarily from the soil, of course. We know that's where the roots are. We know primarily, unless you have some kind of modification, but that's where they're going to be able to absorb that water, those minerals, those ions, everything they need right there. And what's the soil made up of? Well, that would be a good question then, because if the roots are getting their nutrients right there from the soil, what is it? Well, the first layer right here is called leaf litter and plant life. In leaf litter and plant life, you have partially decomposed organic material. This could be stuff like leaves from plants or broken limbs or whatever. It could also be dead or dead animals, excrement from animals. There's various things it could be. And as those things are decomposed, it's right there on the surface, and that's part of that leaf litter and plant life that's growing there. Right below the surface, you have the topsoil, and the topsoil is well decomposed organic matter. And when you think about going to the store maybe to buy soil to plant a plant in a pot at the house, you're probably going to buy some sort of topsoil to plant that plant at the house. And that's going to, it's called topsoil because it has a lot of this well decomposed organic matter in there. It's good nutrients for the plant to be able to produce those big, bright leaves and colors in their flowers, and then inevitably maybe you're trying to grow some kind of crop or whatever. This is the soil that you're wanting to have a lot of good stuff in for that plant to be able to absorb. Right below that is called the subsoil. In the subsoil, you've got minerals leaching from rocks and accumulating from above. This area, you're not going to get a bunch of roots in. It's not rich in a lot of things that the plant needs. It's just like this in-between phase between the bedrock from below and the topsoil above. And the bedrock is this very hard surface. It will actually help create soil up above. As it gets broken down, it will release those small particles that will create more dirt above. And then as the ground is disturbed and different things, you'll get some moving back and forth on these layers. So what is... we get to the third question here. How do plant roots absorb important minerals? Now, this is an important process that you need to understand. It's called cation exchange. It happens because soil particles tend to have a negative charge. So they're negative. Most of the minerals that the plant needs to absorb are positive. So positive ions are attracted to the soil particles, and you want this. Now, you want there to be a lot of space and aeration there in the soil as well. If the soil gets too compacted, then you don't get this cation exchange very good. Sorry about that, guys. So you want there to be some space here. You want there to be an ability for these positive ions to be attracted to the soil. And the negative ions stay in solution surrounding the roots, creating a charge gradient. And we know from diffusion that molecules want to move from high concentration to low concentration. Well, in this case, it's a charge concentration. Inside the root is more of a positive environment. Outside, because of these negative ions that's surrounding the root, is more negative. So what does that do? It pulls positives out of the root. As it pulls positives out of the root, it will cause these positives to interact with the positives around the soil. Now, we know if you've ever played with a magnet that you get two positive ends around each other, and what do? They want to repel. They want to go away from each other. So when you get positives out here in the soil, what you're doing is these positives won't be held so tightly to the soil now. They'll be able to get loosened up some. And then through active transport, you can get molecules like potassium and other positive ions into the root. What are some special strategies the plant use to obtain nutrients? The one that we're really going to focus here on is nitrogen. Nitrogen is, I'm sorry, I don't know why this is popping up. There we go. Nitrogen is so important to the plant, and it's one of those minerals, or it's one of those elements really that the plant needs a lot of. And if they don't have a lot of nitrogen, they're just not going to be as healthy. And we see this with a lot of crops. That's why farmers will let land go in fallow, or they'll switch what they're growing on there to put nitrogen back into the soil. So we know that this process needs to take place. Nitrogen fixation is a turning nitrogen gas into ammonia, NH3. N2 is a triple bonded nitrogen, and your body can't do anything with it. The plant can't do anything with it. It's a molecule that is abundance in the atmosphere, but we don't know what to do with it. So you have to have something that's able to fix that nitrogen into ammonia, NH3. This is one of the processes, and I know that this is going to be hard to see, so please check this figure out in your book, figure 39.9. I'm going to go through and explain it, but I know these words are going to be hard to see on the screen. So for plants that we call legumes, they're going to develop a relationship with a particular type of bacteria that are called nitrogen-fixing bacteria. In this case, it's these little purple molecules here, and they're called rhizobium. That's a bacteria, and that bacteria has the ability to fix nitrogen. So rhizobium will be out here in the soil. It will release what we call nod factors. Nod factors will be secreted by the rhizobium, and that will cause the root hair to, in essence, be mutated. So that root hair, remember, the purpose of that was to increase surface area so you could absorb more water. But the rhizobium will release nod factors that will cause this root hair to curl up. And when it curls up, it will be infected by the rhizobium. And the rhizobium then, inside of the plant, will then cause this nodule here, this nodule, to be formed. And that nodule will contain a bunch of nitrogen-fixing bacteria inside of that. So now you've got bacteria in there that will be able to take nitrogen gas out of the atmosphere, turn it into ammonia, and secrete that ammonia then into the plant to help the plant. Now, in return, what does the bacteria get from this? Well, you get protection because you're inside of something now as opposed to hanging out there in the soil. That's a more vulnerable place. And you're going to get nutrients from the plant. That bacteria is not able to produce its own food, so it needs to get food from somewhere. How does it get it? It actually is able to take it from the plant. So it's a win for both of these organisms.